One weekend, this man's daughter came to visit him after she had gone to the big city to work since graduating from college. He hadn't seen her in a long time. And she finally came to visit him. And basically throughout the whole weekend, she ended up complaining. He felt he needed to see her. He knew something was wrong. And so the whole weekend he just planned that he would be quiet and he would listen to her. So she came and she slept and they ate together. She complained. She told him about all his problems. They had breakfast, lunch, dinner. And then Sunday, before she was heading back, as they were eating their last meal, he didn't say anything the entire weekend. He felt like he needed to give her this time. And so as they were finishing up their last meal together, shortly before she had to hit a plane to go back to the big city, he placed 3 plates on the table and 3 pots and filled them with water. On the plates, he put a couple potatoes, cold raw potatoes. On another plate, he placed a few eggs. And then on another plate, he placed some coffee beans. And she didn't know what he was doing. She thought he was being a little odd, or he was going to prepare for her a snack before leaving. And so as he did this, he placed the pots on the stove and he brought them all to a boil. And then he placed each one of these items in their own separate pot. The potatoes in a pot, the coffee beans in a pot, and the eggs in a pot. After about 20 minutes, she continued. Finally, she was getting unnerved by this silent movie that she was watching of her dad doing something very strange. She said, "What are you doing?" And then it was about the time that he pulled the pots off, and he pulled the potatoes out, strained them, placed them on a plate. He took the eggs, took a ladle, and took them out and dried them and put them on a plate. And with the coffee, it was different. He strained them and he poured the coffee, the brown water, into 2 separate cups. And he said to her, "So you see these three different items, these eggs, the potatoes, and the coffee beans. What were they like before they went in the water?" She said, "Well, the potatoes were cold and hard. The eggs had a hard shell and a soft inside. And the beans were just coffee beans. And they were small and hard." And he said, "So what are they like now?" So she touched the potatoes. She said, "Well, the potatoes are soft." And then he said, "Touch the eggs, open them up." She cracked open and peeled the eggs, and she said, "They're hard inside." The potatoes were soft inside, the eggs were hard inside. And then she took the coffee beans, and then he looked at the coffee beans, and he said, "What's different about them?" She said, she smelled it, she smelled the cup, made her happy, made her feel good, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. And she took a sip and she said, "It's wonderful, it's coffee." So he said, "Yeah, all 3 of these items went through, there are 3 different people, you could call them people, but they all went through the same adversity. They all went through the trial of boiling water. But each one of them came out, the potatoes came out soft and weak. The eggs came out hard on the inside, and the beans changed. The beans changed to the environment and became something different, became something actually very enjoyable." So what's the moral of the story? We all go through adversity. We all come from different backgrounds. We all have different experiences growing up, but we are people and we all have adversity. No one is immune to it, no matter what your background is. So I think this is a story that just recently struck with me. I heard it a long time ago, But I think, it's a parable. It's not a parable from the Bible. I don't know where it comes from. But this is something that we need to keep in mind, especially when we go through life. We think we're the only ones. It's only me. Woe is me. This is life. If this was my father, I would have loved to have learned lessons like this, life lessons from my father like this. But he would have told me, you're a wuss. This father spent time with her, gave her time to breathe, but he wanted to give her something to think about. He wanted to give her something to learn from on her own. My father would have been, don't be a pussy. That's life. You got make lemonade out of lemons. That's the other common way of putting this. But I learned hard, critical lessons that were taught to me very rough. I would have been called a pussy or don't be a mama's boy. And my mother was the softer side of them, and she was probably a little too soft, I think. She did cradle me a little bit because of how hard my father was on me. But either way, I still had a lesson to learn from that. It wasn't the most ideal way to learn lessons, but I think the thing we need to keep in mind is we aren't alone. Everybody has adversity and they're going through something. I just went through a very difficult work experience. And at the end of my career, which at least what looks like the end of my career, it was a very difficult work experience that I could be very bitter about, and I have to admit there were times when I was hard like an egg. I came out hard like an egg in some experiences, very angry, very bitter, resentful, and there were some times I was weak. I was weak. I kind of gave up. I'm like, why is this happening to me? Why does this have to happen? And then, but I have an opportunity here at the end of this job to look back on that time and either learn the lessons that I'm to learn from it and become stronger from it and become something new. I don't think we were meant to be bitter, old, and cold and become hard. My dad became hard. He was an egg, and that was in his genes. He grew up that way. Very hard, cold family. And my mom's side was the complete opposite. I don't know how they made kids, to be honest with you. But my mom's side was much softer, and they were the more wisdom, it was more wisdom and loving and nurturing side. But I had a choice to either end up like my dad, who the older he got, the more cold and bitter he became and angry, or be like my mother, who she grew. She became wise. She became more mature. She became more caring and more loving to people, even when she didn't have to. And I have the same choice. When I look back, when I think of this, I think of a friend, a guy that I know that I worked with 10, 15 years ago. We worked in the same organization in Laos. And he got run out of the organization. I think he was unfairly treated. I'm not saying it was 100% not his fault, but I think he was not a favored child in the organization. And I give him that credit that he was good at what he did. He didn't find favor in the leadership. And to this day, 15 years later, I haven't seen him in a little while, but every time I tried to see him for years after that, that's all he would bring up. How just bitter and resentment. And I guarantee, I am so sure, if I bring that up, if I meet him again soon, anytime soon, he'll still bring it up. But you can see it on him. He's just, he's 10 years younger than me, and he looks like he's 20 years older than me. You can see it. It's aged him, and it just the way his behaviors are, and honestly, it's really hard to be around him. I want to see him, but it's very hard to be around him because he's just so cold and bitter. He's more weak. He's the potato. He turned out to be the potato, weak and just bitter about, and he still brings that up. Even though he met his wife, he still lives here. He met his wife through the organization. I mean, so he's still working. He's got a house. I mean, he's got so much to be grateful for, and he's absolutely miserable. You know, I just one of the points I want to make here is I could leave the organization I just left bitter. I'm not happy about what happened. I'm very disappointed, but I'm going to move on, and I'm going to be stronger from this, and I'm going to make coffee. I'm going to make lemonade out of what happened, and I'm going to be a better person for it. But I think one of the other things we need to learn from this is, look, we're all going through adversity. We all go through adversity. No one is immune to it. So it's hard for me to see people out there that think, you know, there's privileged people. Yes, some people might be wealthier than others, but that doesn't make them immune to difficulties. You know, and I have to remember that myself. We all have adversity to go through. We all have life to deal with. And we are born with what we're, with our destiny. And we are born to persevere. And so what are you going to be? You're going to be, you have a choice to be careful, caring, loving, and kind to people, and know that other people are going through difficult times. Or you want to be bitter, mean, and entitled, like you are something more special than the other person. None of us chose to be born, but we are here for a reason. And I do feel like we are here for each other. And I got to remember that to myself on a daily basis. I cannot forget that. So I think this was an important lesson I wanted to share. It's something that I've been thinking about. I heard this parable about a week or two ago. I heard it many years ago. And it's just something I want to be cognizant of while I am processing this last job. So hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down in the comments, have you ever heard this parable before? And where do you think you are in this process? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think, you know, you can make a lot of things out of the analogy, but I mean, potatoes you can eat, and I don't want to minimize the point of the story. The point is the story, you have a choice. You have a choice to come out either you can be changed to something good and useful, or you can become soft and weak or cold and hard. I choose to be coffee. I love coffee. Anyway, take care everybody. God bless. Take care of each other. Be graceful and merciful to other people. God bless, and take it slow.